the rectory, there's another story. That was lived in by, what was the rector called? Anyway, the rector, when he died, he was finally sold off in 1955 by the church commissioners to the highest bid, sealed bid. And my grandmother put in a bid, I think of £2,000, and Jack Short, Peter Cotham's father-in-law, or Derry Cotham's father, he put in a bid of £2,005. And he turned around and he sold it to Mr. Roberts, who came to live there for just under £4,000, without even going in there. And Mr. Roberts lived there with Nicky Roberts, his son, and then his wife died, and he married then a Mrs. Green, who was a widow because she was at the school where Nicky was, and he always called her Mrs. Green. May I introduce to you my wife, Mrs. Green? And he sort of lived there in an idyllic sort of, life. He didn't really do a lot to it. He'd get the big fire going by pouring petrol on a couple of tires, And we used to have, then my mother introduced the revel there in 1961, and that took place there. And I can always remember Jim Blight, who was another great Old Kingstonian, and Ken Avery waltzing together at the back. There was a yard where the present little housing things go round. It was a cobbled yard, and they were cidered up. And they waltzed together there. Of course, then Jim Bombra married a Winky down here. He left Winky and married and went off with Mrs. Green. And Jim Bombra was one of the greatest rogues the world has ever known. A likeable rogue.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, and he built.
That was a mystery.
Yeah, and he went off with Mrs. Green. Of course, my mother was convinced that Mr. Roberts had buried his first wife under the duck house. I said, "Oh, entirely possible. I don't think you should go around saying it, Mum,